Welcome to the Movies of the Damn podcast. My name is Kyle Grant, and I'm sitting here with my friend and published horror author, John Hunt. If you enjoy what you hear here today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, and follow us on both Instagram and Twitter at Damned Movies. Email us any questions, comments, and suggestions to moviesofthedamned@gmail.com. For further details on John's published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Today, we'll be discussing Rob Zombie's 2003 black comedy horror film, House of a Thousand Corpses. The movie follows four friends who are traveling across the country visiting offbeat roadside attractions, who, in the search of the Dr. Satan tree, are soon abducted by an insane family and taken to their secluded farmhouse. They are then tortured both psychologically and physically, and eventually presented to Dr. Satan. Only Denise is able to escape, but the film ends as she is recaptured and is seemingly doomed as well. John, opening thoughts on the movie?
So I saw this movie a while ago, and I remember it being very dark and gritty, and at the time, there wasn't that many movies out that were like that. So I was kind of quite happy with it, in the sense that, okay, well, horror got, a little too comedy, not enough darkness, and it could be I just wasn't watching the right films. But when this one came out and I saw it, I was immediately intrigued. I watched it, and I enjoyed it back then, and I only saw it the one time. And then watching it again for the podcast, I kind of had a different feeling about it.
I think you described it perfectly there when you said that it's a very, very dark film. It's a really obscene, like over the top film,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can understand why people didn't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to be honest, my history with this movie is the exact same as yours, where I saw it kind of right when it came out. I don't remember going to see this one in theaters, but I saw it not too long after it came out because I just remember, oh, Rob Zombie's doing a movie. Oh, I got to check this out. And it did have a little bit of a cult following, some hype behind it. So I did see it fairly right away. Uh, and to be honest, when I first saw it, and we'll get into it, I, I don't know. I wouldn't say I loved this movie. I wouldn't say I hated it. It was more in different parts I liked, parts I disliked. And then I had those same feelings when I went through it the second time through.
Yeah, that's, you know what, I have to admit, I liked this movie, and I liked it at the time. It was interesting. I have different feelings about it now, but I kind of like Devil's Rejects a lot better.
Yeah, it's so hilarious. Like I know I haven't seen The Devil's Rejects in years, but I would say so as well.
And I haven't watched Three from Hell yet, so I don't really have an opinion on that one. But Devil's Rejects, I watched it and I was like, oh, this is very interesting, and it made me want to watch House of a Thousand Corpses again. So that's kind of good for the sequel. But then I watched this one again, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of, so for me it was more like they like borrowed a lot of plot lines and cliches from other movies. And I didn't really notice it the first time because sometimes you get distracted by the violence or the characters. And but now when I watch it again now, when I just watched it recently, I noticed a lot of similarities to a lot of other movies, and they seemed very glaring to me now. And we can go over some of those, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know if this held up in that regard. Then, like for me, I enjoyed it the first time around. Second time around, I would say that my level of indifference was also there, and maybe even there's a level of boredom.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on that. And just to speak to your one point, where it's just so funny, where you said you enjoyed The Devil's Rejects more, and I'm in total agreement with you on that one. I really feel like that sequel took all the best parts of this movie and created its own film off of it, and so it didn't have some of those glaring issues that I thought that this film had. But let's start working our way through this one. So that opening scene with is just
Captain
with kind of
Spaulding,
the yeah, Captain Spaulding and the stick up at the whatever you want to call his museum or whatever
museum
you want
gas
to call it.
station. Yeah,
Yeah, completely over the top, completely ridiculous, completely obscene, like I said before, but a completely perfect representation for what you're getting in this overall movie.
yeah. I don't think
Like
like
it did not lead you astray.
I would agree with that. I think from the very beginning, you knew what you were getting into, so you couldn't be like halfway through the film going, "I never thought it would be this violent." There's no way. You knew
Yeah.
what you were getting right from the very beginning, which is, I appreciate, and I'm sure some people will, even though they might not like the film, would have appreciated knowing at the offset what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah,
So
there's no slow build to this. Like it
no,
hits the ground running right away with exactly what it's presenting to us. And it's again, as I've said a few times so far, it's ultra violent, very obscene, like the language is over the top. It's just a very unique, strange movie.
I don't. So let's go over the uniqueness part to it. Like
Okay.
I didn't really find too much unique with this, except for maybe the ending. But even then, I had like different. So it clearly has it's set in the 70s, so it clearly has a 70s vibe to it. But like
Yeah.
even some of the filming, where they did like the off, I forget the what is that called when they do like the negative filming? So they did like the negative filming where they show the negatives of scenes coming up and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
when they kind of like the scene transitions.
yeah, but like like you didn't see pictures of people. It was just more like it was there was bright pinks and whatever, right? They use like the very like you ever see negatives of films?
Yeah, yeah.
So that they use that in some of the scene transitions for sure. And they did that, and then they had like like older 70s horror shows that were the late night horror shows with the Frankenstein stuff. But didn't you feel like, to me this felt like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, man? Like a lot of it did. So you have like them stopping at the gas station. You have the person at the gas station kind of involved with the family, but you don't really know too much. Reluctantly telling them that really, he didn't want to give him the map to the Satan's tree, Dr. Satan's tree or anything like that at the very beginning. So he's kind of reluctantly told about that, just like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then you kind of have like the crazy family there, uh, abducting and doing terrible things to people, just kind of like that as well. It really had that vibe for me when I was watching it. I'm like going, okay, um, they really kind of took some of those um, setups, right? So then you have, but like before it happens, you have the one daughter phoning her dad and happen to tell the dad exactly what type of gas station they're at, like Captain Spaulding's weird museum place, like, you know what I mean? So you knew like from the very beginning there's going to be a search for them, and the dad's going to be involved in it. Like there's just a lot of um, easy to spot setups, which
Yeah.
I don't really mind. Like I don't mind, like, because you don't really want, it's a horror film, right? So you don't want it to be too layered. But I really felt I was watching a mixture of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, um, what's the other one? Natural Born Killers by Oliver Stone, and like there's a lot of conglomerations of different films in this, where they took storylines from these other films and kind of put it into one. And I was just like, well, where's the original part to this? Like even when he was wearing the skin mask, right? Remember, he wore her dad's mask, like cut
Yeah.
off her dad's face, and wore like that's Leatherface stuff right there, right?
Yeah, kind
That's
of right near the end when they have them dressed up in like the bunny
yeah,
suits, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
they had like Ed Gein, like they referenced Ed Gein and all that type of stuff, which is part of where the inspiration for Leatherface came from. Like, you know what I mean? There's just, um, I'm pretty sure it was intentional, but I didn't really spot it too much the first time I saw it. But when I watched it the second time through, I saw all these things, and it kind of took a lot of the enjoyment away from me because I'm just like, okay, well, where's the original part here? Like, where's the part where it's a different story? Um, and then you get to near the ending where you got all these people in the cave and they're um, where they sacrifice the people to Doctor Satan and all that type of stuff, and I'm just like, I just felt like that almost had like a Hellraiser vibe to me. I know that's a stretch, but you know what I mean, like the Cenobites and the way they're all messed up and they're there just to torture other people. Like it had one of those vibes to me, and so once again, that's how I interpret it. So a lot of people, there's probably a lot of Rob Zombie fans are going to be like, "You idiot," blah blah blah, and that's fine. Um, we all have our different opinions on that. I just felt those things took away from the overall enjoyment of the film. Whereas in Devil's Rejects, like I remember that being gritty and everything being so, the murders and the way they acted was so callous. I felt like that's so true to life. The way um, how cruel and how callous like these psychopaths can really be, and I was really drawn into that one. Whereas this one, I was, not so much.
Okay, well, a few things to unpack there.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry.
no, that's all
Went
right.
on a
It was
tangent.
a That's all right. It was a good little rant because I want you to get out what you're feeling here. But it's interesting that you bring up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because obviously there's a lot of similarities between these two films. But Rob Zombie actually credited that and The Hills Have Eyes as two big inspirations and influences on this film. And
For
so
sure.
obviously with the family and everything like that, and then The Hills Have Eyes with kind of I would the similarities I would draw is kind of the mutants that were involved in this film.
Okay, for sure, and tiny and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's and sometimes when we look back at movies that we haven't seen in a while, especially we sometimes just look at them kind of with rose-colored glasses, right? You remember the good things and you might forget some of the bad things. And so before we praise Devil's Rejects too much, and I did enjoy it too. Maybe we need to rewatch it again because before we rewatched A House of a Thousand Corpses, both you and I had a lot of good memories of it, right?
no, I totally agree with that. I just um yeah, that's a solid point. I just remember even when I saw Devil's Rejects, I remember liking it more because I wanted to watch the first one again. It kind of
Mhm.
inspired you to watch the first one again. So that's
And
usually,
and I was
yeah,
the same way. I
yeah.
I when I remember when I watched that film, I liked it better than this one. Which is rare that you like a sequel better than the original.
Hmm.
I guess with my original point though that I found this unique. Maybe it wasn't so much the story as you indicated is quite borrowed. It more so had to do with the tone of the movie. Where and now correct me if I'm wrong. I can't really think of another one that was presented like this that was so ultra violent, so ultra gruesome, but was like such a an offbeat, wacky black comedy, just really, really strange stuff. Like I can't think of any other movie that's presented like this.
Okay, I would agree with that. The ultraviolet, that's what initially drew me to it, the grittiness and the darkness, because I don't remember other horror movies from that time pushing those boundaries. So that's why I was drawn to this movie because it was done in that way. Um, but once again, I I so watching it now, I'm like, okay, well, just think of it in the context of when the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released. That would have been considered ultraviolent and new and gruesome for its time period.
Yeah.
So, and this one was the same and presented in the same way for this time period. So even then, there's some striking similarities to
Yeah,
me.
but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't a dark comedy.
I don't know what part. I don't know what comedy. I don't remember any comedy in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, it
Like you
was.
don't think that the Captain Spaulding's character was like so over the top and like kind of like some of the scenes with Baby when she's trying to flirt with Dwight Schrute is what I'm going to call him.
Yeah,
Just like really, really weird, um, maybe not like laugh out loud stuff, but more like awkward, like kind of like that awkward comedic moments.
No, I okay. So no, I didn't find. I thought it was just character development, right? Because Captain Spaulding, like even at the very beginning, like you kind of knew he'd be involved because of how offbeat and how violent that he was, and then with Baby, like almost every horror movie has some sort of levity added into it, so it doesn't make them all dark comedies, right? So I would I don't find anything. I didn't find any comedy in this movie at all. Actually, I thought like it was more eye-catching, odd behavior. Uh,
Yes,
but
very odd behavior.
yeah, for sure. But then um, there are there are multiple murderers, so there's going to be odd behavior. They're going to be socially awkward or socially distant or um, whatever the case may be. Like they're just. I didn't find it. I wouldn't classify this as a dark comedy at all. But uh,
Well, so the movie sites out there are going to disagree with you, but it's to each their own, right?
yeah, for sure. And um, but I don't know. Like I don't like I don't know. Would you call the Terrifier a dark comedy?
Yeah.
I don't think anything funny about that film.
What about in the Terrifier when he's trying to reach for her and instead like puts his hand through and has the bell, the horn, and he starts squeaking the horn at her?
I don't see
Like,
like I don't know. Okay, I guess I don't understand what a dark comedy is. So any horror movie that has any type of levity or funniness in it is a dark comedy.
oh, I think it has to be sustained throughout the picture. It can't just be like one funny scene.
Okay, so I don't know how once then even looking at that like I don't think it was sustained
Okay.
in my
And
opinion.
like,
In my opinion.
yeah, and I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on this one. But no, I definitely hear what you're saying. But like even like for example, another thing would be like when they take that tour at the beginning and they go on the murder ride. Like
Yeah.
I found that hilarious. Just the entire setup of everything that was happening, where instead of having like an electric cart, they had that wasn't it Tiny at the back pushing the cart for them.
Mhm. No, it wasn't
Like
tiny. It wasn't tiny. It was like I forget his name, but it wasn't tiny.
yeah, it was
C-
another giant fellow, but I just like
Yeah.
thought it was like so ridiculous.
Well, definitely, yeah. But to me, it's so. That's interesting how we both see it so differently. So, to me, I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, it's a low budget ride. They don't.
Yeah.
It's not run on rails. They actually have a guy pushing it. This is a horror movie. You have two, um, like kind of crazy people who murdered people earlier in the film,
Yeah.
and to me, it's like almost a suspense building
Oh,
because
okay. Yeah.
you got the guy pushing them from behind and they're going through all these horrific murder scenes, and they're giving you the story of Doctor Satan at the same time. I don't, I didn't find it.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it was just like it's so ridiculous. Like you chuckle at it. And but
Oh,
you're right.
okay.
It's just so funny that like we see the same thing, but we look at it so differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um. But 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 one thing I do have to say for this film, that the one thing that I really enjoy is that with these four kind of there it's set in motion that they're going across the country. They're looking for these offbeat attractions. They're writing a book about it. They're trying to find this tree so they can write about it in their book. There was really no stupid bad decision.
No,
And
they were stuck
and so
into
I like
this.
that. I really like that. Yeah, they once they went looking for that tree and their tire gets blown out,
Mm-hmm.
there's there's nothing they can do.
Yeah,
Their
I
hand
would
was forced.
for sure. I would normally say picking up Baby was a stupid decision, but in the '70s, people hitchhiked all the time. That was a normal thing. You picked up people all the time.
And she didn't
So
look threatening.
no, but that that wouldn't. But you know what I mean. So exactly, they're not threatening, but also for that time period, it it was teenagers. That's how teenagers got across the country, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how they traveled in America when they're all trying to be like Jack Kerouac or whatever, right? It's a kind of a normal thing. Um, like Ted Bundy was famous for looking for them, and Ed Kemper was famous for looking for hitchhikers. Like it was just one of those things. So I didn't I looking at it like in 2020 eyes, I'd be like, this is crazy. But then that's normal, so it's not even an issue.
Yeah, no, no, exactly. I just wanted to bring up that point. And the other thing I kind of really enjoyed that we kind of touched on briefly already is I really like the way that they did those scene transitions. I just thought it added to the overall atmosphere and mood of the movie.
For sure. Like I really I did like that stuff. It was a different and unique style. Once again, it was borrowed from movies that I've seen in the 70s or whatever. But everyone does that. Like Quentin Tarantino does that. Like a lot of people do that. They just borrow something that they liked from shows that they watched when they were kids, and they incorporate it into their own films. And this is also it also drew you into the time period, right?
Yeah.
So it drew you into the 70s films of that time period. So it was actually a very good way to draw you in and make you feel like you're a part of that time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It helps constantly remind you that this is set in the 1970s.
hmm
And
I was confused. Like, so the one part that really reminded me of Natural Born Killers is when the albino, I forget his name.
he's kind of like the ringleader.
Yeah. So, anyways, he's when the one girl, when they're dressed as rabbits, they're about to be offered to Dr. Satan in that coffin.
Yeah.
The one girl runs off, and he's like, and then a baby runs off after her.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's this whole, almost like a confessional scene where it goes into, um, he's like in a different part. He's wearing clothes from earlier, and he's talking about, um, run rabbit run and all that type of stuff. The best people to hunt are humans and all that type of stuff. He goes in this whole, and it's completely taken out of the scene, but it totally reminded me of Natural Born Killers because they did that quite a bit in that, right? Where it's just they kind of something was going on and they drew you to another part. So I thought that was also very interesting as well.
Oh, that you know what I didn't make that comparison, but now that you bring it up, that makes sense. The one scene that I absolutely loved, well, just in the way it was shot, I thought it was just like it made the tension just rise. When the one police officer gets kind of trapped and he surrenders,
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of gets down on his knees, and the camera just continually kind of
Goes
zooms
up and up.
out
Yep.
and up and up, and the music eventually stops, and then it just like it feels like the scene is just there forever,
I know.
and then he eventually executes him. I'm like, this is such a wild shot. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen something like that
Mm-hmm.
before.
So it's like after like after I saw this movie and it was Rob Zombie, and then I don't know what came next, whether he did Devil's Rejects or the Halloween remake, but I was very excited for him to do the Halloween remake because of how dark and gritty this was. Uh, but once again, like I just there's just too many borrowed storylines for me to what I mean for it to have that continual punch, right? Whereas like the first time I saw it, I had that good um, grittiness, shocking value. I enjoyed it. I thought, okay, this is where horror movies are going. I'm happy. And then watching it again, I just saw too many similarities to other films. Still enjoyed the movie though. I would just say uh, I was more. My enjoyment level did suffer for sure. Like I was almost indifferent to a lot of it.
And I don't know. I guess I kind of had um, two major things that I disliked in this movie.
Go.
Number one, I got the impression that this family had done this a lot.
Yep.
Like they have abducted and killed lots of people. Would you agree with me on that one?
Oh, the cheerleaders, right?
Yeah, even more than the cheerleaders.
Yeah, I know, but they gave it. I mean, I just mean that was what gave you the impression and the title of the movie.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So then because of that, and they haven't been caught, they're good at covering their tracks, but yet in this movie, they leave the car where it can be found, and they put one of the cheerleaders' bodies in the trunk.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, it's so the only person
Be
who really knew where these guys are, or were, seemed to be Captain Spaulding. Otherwise, no one really knew about this family and where they were.
yeah.
So I'm not, and they're kind of out in the desert, so I'm not really too bothered by that because they kind of led you up to that because the daughter phoned her dad, and then the dad, who was an ex-police officer, phoned his buddy, who's a police officer, and now you have police officers, looking for a girl who um, they have a good idea of where she was last seen, and so they're able to talk to that person who gives them another idea where to look, and they end up going. I don't really have a problem with those breadcrumbs, you know.
I guess I just don't feel like they would have made it possible for it to be connected. I think they would have just got rid of everything, as they have been doing for seemingly numerous other abductions and killings.
For sure, but after this is true of almost every serial killer that gets caught, is that you do it long enough, you become complacent in the small details. So they've been getting away with
Oh,
it.
yeah, you feel like you're untouchable. No, I
Yeah.
get that.
So they've been doing it for a long time, and like, there's no reason for anyone to be out where they were. So it's like, and they had no idea that um, Captain Spaulding would draw a map for the police as well, right? I really don't have a problem with their confidence level in that one.
Okay,
But
and so
I know where they're coming from, but I don't have just like a lot of factors involved in there, where it's like a lot of things had to go wrong for this family in order for that car to be found, and they all went wrong in a logical way. So I didn't
be,
have a
be,
problem with it.
because of the setup and all the breadcrumbs
Yeah,
laid. Okay, and then the second thing is the ending. No, not the ending itself. Like the very end, I'm cool with. Like
hmm
I don't mind the unhappy ending. Like she
for sure.
seemingly gets away, and then Spaulding gives her the ride, and she meets her doom seemingly. But it's the lead up to that. Now, hear me out here. Now, everything in this film obviously is offbeat, and it's this kind of this crazy family of psychopaths, and they abduct and they kill people, and all these characters are kind of over the top and a little bit unbelievable. But it's all possible because they're human beings. But
hmm
then in the end, they bring in this Dr. Satan, like unreal. I don't even know what he is. Like, whether he's like a demon or an undead or whatever. I just it went from being like a believable movie to like it's completely ridiculous, not possible. Are you following my train of thought there?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't like the guy with the red mask or whatever, or the red skull mask or whatever. I just thought that was a
Yeah.
little like a I don't know. I understand the concept behind it though. Like Doctor Satan was a doctor trying to extend his life um, through stealing others.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't really have too much of a problem with the concept, and that if you've lived long enough, like that's what I mean. Like that's the whole part that had the Hellraiser vibe to me, right? Where he's like kind of mechanical, and people were faces were kind of ripped open and all in odd ways. Um, Even though and then the whole Satan thing as well, right? So just a reference in that, like not saying it's like in any way, shape, or form like Hellraiser in plot progression or anything like that. I just mean like that vibe from that scene gave me that impression.
Okay.
But um, I think the whole lead up to the film, I didn't, I didn't find that part that surprising. I just thought it was more,
I didn't think
um,
it fit.
well, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I don't really think it fit too much as well, but they had to have something with Doctor Satan. Like the whole movie was based upon that.
I think they just all they have to do is at the end they sacrifice it for Dr. Satan. Like they go and they kill them out in the field near the tree or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do in that situation. Like if maybe they set it up where this person needs Doctor Satan needs something like I don't mind him being alive, but I would have liked him like them to have a
Like,
reason.
what was he alive or was he like a demon or like an undead person or something? You know what I mean? Like,
See, yeah, that's unclear, but I would say based upon there being no ghost or supernatural aspect to this film at all leading up to that, I would say that he was still alive and that he is just taking parts from people that he kills to prolong his own life.
oh, okay.
That's the impression I got. He was just extending his own life by murdering others and operating in them and figuring out a way to keep living.
Interesting. Okay, well that wasn't the impression I got, but I guess I really don't have anything to argue against it. It's just the way I kind of saw it.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was really polarizing, you can tell by our discussion. But
For
Rotten
sure.
Tomatoes, for example, the critic score is sitting at 20, and the audience score is at a 66.
Wow.
So that's kind of all over the map. I can understand why the critics didn't like it by a lot of the issues we brought up, but then also the fact that it's so obscene, that it's so gory, it's ultra violent. Uh, John, are you a thumbs up or thumbs down? And where are
I'm
you if
I'm
you have to score it?
I'm definitely a thumbs up. Like if you like horror, like this is a like dark horror. Like this is a movie for you. Like for sure. Like it has like such weird elements and um like there's nothing wrong with the directing or anything like that. Like it was a very interesting film. Like I would never say I was bored or I wanted to turn it off or anything like that. I would just say because I'd seen so many of the plot progressions and cliches before that my indifference was only because my lack of interest had waned. Sorry, my interest had waned because I'd seen similar things so many times before. But that doesn't detract from you know from the skill and the director's skill or just the visual presentation of it or just the very darkness of the film from a horror standpoint, from a horror fan perspective. Like, I think it meets all the criteria of for someone who likes horror.
And I think that that's why this thing kind of turned into a little bit of a cult classic because it didn't really kill it at the box office. Like it ended up being made for 7 million and brought in a little over 16.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of the cult classic that obviously these sequels ended up getting made with, as we already discussed, the Devil's Rejects and Three from Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is kind of interesting when you think about it because generally you don't get sequels or even a trilogy from a film that wasn't a huge box office success. So this is a very interesting case.
For sure. For sure.
Me myself, I will give it a thumbs up, but I'm going to be like right at the edge. I'll be right in the low 60s because of some of the issues that we've discussed so far.
Mm-hmm.
Couple interesting things though that I ended up finding out about this film is that when this thing was greenlit, uh, it was kind of conceived first of all by Zombie when he was designing a haunted house for Universal Studios, and kind of ended up conceiving of the movie from there. And I guess that haunted house would be kind of like the murder ride from the beginning,
Yep.
and he kind of built off that and made a film. And originally was given a budget of 3 to 4 million from Universal,
Oh.
and he really knew that 3 to 4 million wouldn't be enough to make the movie that he wanted to make. So here's the strategy he took. He filmed a very good film with a terrible ending. And then so when Universal watched it, they're like, "We like this movie, but we don't like the ending." And he's like, "Well, if you give me some more money, I'll make a better ending." And that's ultimately what happened, and that's how it ended up with a $7 million budget. So I just thought that that was kind of an interesting strategy there.
That is a good
But
strategy.
then when it was finished, um, Universal decided to shelve the movie
Wow.
because of the rating. So eventually, Zombie had to reacquire the rights, and eventually ended up selling it to Lionsgate, who distributed the movie.
Oh wow.
So it's just so wild that this thing, just in how it ended, it was originally conceived to how it was made, and then given more money, and then shelved, and then eventually got out there. Just kind of a wild ride to get his first theatrical release out there.
Yeah. No kidding, eh?
Yeah, so there's all these movies have a story, and this one especially has an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, buddy, anything else to add on this one?
No, I got nothing.
Well, folks, then the only thing we got left to tell you is the movie we're going to be discussing next week. We're going to another indie movie next week. So the a production or a distribution company that's reached out to us in the past, Dark Coast Worldwide and Tricoast Worldwide, reached out to us again with a movie that's going to be coming out soon called Legend of the Muse. So previous episodes we've done a few of their films. So Case 347 and Ghost in the Graveyard are two movies that we didn't really love that much. But then there was Between the Darkness, which John, you and I both really enjoyed.
Good
So
film. Mm-hmm.
we're hoping that this one falls on the Between the Darkness side and that it's not one up and three down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But we're looking forward to watch it. The one thing that really grabbed us on this one is the trailer that you can find on YouTube. So again, go to YouTube, search Legend of the Muse, and the trailer will likely grab you guys like it did with us. Check out the IMDb page for further info, and please listen in next week to hear what we have to say about it.
Yep, for sure.
All right, folks. Other than that, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, and follow us on both Twitter and Instagram at Damn Movies. We want to hear what you thought of today's podcast and any suggestions you have, especially in terms of what movies you'd like us to discuss next. Send us an email to moviesthedamned@gmail.com. Please also check out John's full-length novels. His first two novels, Dollhouse and The Tracker, are Amazon bestsellers. You can also order his novella Balance, his book of short stories, Four Shots of Horror, and his newest novel, Off the Grid, all available right now on Amazon. For further details on John's other published works, please visit his blog, johnhuntfiction.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
That's what, everyone. Hope everyone's staying safe, and have a great week. Be kind to everyone.